11 o'clock. It's on the hour, 11 o'clock here, and happy Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, Sunday morning. I see some of our regulars. I see some new faces. I see some new names without faces. That's kind of great. I've talked many times about how we as square dance callers have to know so many things: singing, choreography, showmanship. We're our own publicists, we're our own audio people, we're our own you name it. We're not our own groupies. One of the things that I haven't added to that, and I guess it's kind of recent since I've been more active, is that we are our own IT department. We've got to become computer experts, at least how to use them, with all this MP3 and choosing which player to use for MP3s. What just happened here?
Who is Jay Mayo and why are they sharing the screen?
Jim, I don't know if you realize it, but you've started sharing your screen, and we're seeing all sorts of weird stuff on here right now. Can you take away permissions to do that right now?
There we go. Okay.
Jim, it's really great to have you on. Jay Mayo is Jim Mayo up in New Hampshire.
Oh.
Whom we hope to have do a talk for us soon. We've got some
red now, Dan. You didn't recognize the name.
Well, I assumed it could be, but you know.
That's Jim's email address.
Enjoyed the book. Yes.
Which one? No, I know which one you mean. We have Japan join us too. So anyway, we're talking about becoming computer experts, and part of it is picking the correct software to use. There are many choices. One has risen kind of to the top because of its price point of being free and very functional, and that's SD-View, Square View, out of Sweden. It has one huge limitation for me and some people, and that's that it only works on PCs, on Windows machines, and not on Macs. And I actually bought a small, inexpensive PC to try and solve that problem several years ago. And physically, it only lasted a year or two before the keys froze up. Anyway, there are other people with Macs that decided they can solve the problem directly by creating something for Macs, because they're deeper into computers than I am. And we're going to listen to, well, let me introduce the presenters today, who have created a great program that was for Macs, but they've managed to port it over to Windows, so you have a choice either way, as well as Linux. Somebody that needs no introduction because you see his face in the upper left-hand corner all the time, all the way from California, is our buddy Dan Lyke here. And working with, I agree, Nikki, and working with him on Square Desk. In fact, the originator of Square Desk, Dan joined in with him, happens to be a caller also in the California Bay Area, who also happens to be pretty up on a lot of things. Mostly, Mike, Dan and I were discussing before, you work for Amazon now, and it's for acoustics, isn't it? Dan was
some of you might be familiar with the Alexa series of products. You can talk to these little boxes that live on your counter. That's the group that I work for. I've been working at Amazon almost 10 years on this, mostly on the device side. And lately, for the last 6 years, I've been working on synchronized audio. So a lot of what I do is audio related in my regular work.
I'm going to have to talk to you later about synchronized audio. I'm trying to figure out how to do it without going for Sonos or something expensive.
Yes.
Anyway, let's hear it. Let's have our wave our hands in front of us from Mike Pogue from California also. And Dan and Mike are going to talk to us about Square Desk. Square Desk, yeah. And I don't know who's going to talk first. So take it away, the Dan and Mike show.
I don't think we know who's going to talk first.
We have not planned this in
Yeah,
advance.
Oh,
and
Well,
I'm
I think I'm going to let Dan talk for a while. The other thing that I'm going to surprise Dan with is I've been also working on a helper sort of a program on the side, which I eventually would like to fold into Square Desk. Right now, I'm kind of calling it either helper or Square Desk tip planner. So I can talk about that as well and get some feedback from people as well after we talk about Square Desk.
awesome. And because I haven't presented or haven't put together a presentation, I'm hoping that this can be as much a conversation as a presentation. So feel free to drop in as we go. And let's see if all of the stuff works the way that I expect it to work. So let's share Square Desk here. So I'm a Linux user, and this is I put this on the Mac, and I have used it occasionally on the Mac, and I didn't fire it up until today. So uh, there's a couple things that I've noticed that are a little weird, like why we don't have text on the tab highlights here, probably color scheme related. At any rate, I used when I started calling, I didn't have a Windows computer. I had a Linux computer, and I started writing something that I called Square Play, and I used that for a little while. And shortly after that, Mike and I were talking at one of the Sunnyvale Callers get-togethers, and Mike said, "I've got this Square Desk thing," and I said, "Well, great, I'll port my code or my ideas over to that." And we ended up with the Square Desk music player, and we've had all sorts of ideas for what more it could be, and gradually integrated other things into it, and haven't and then I haven't done any work on it in 2 years, and Mike is off building other things which I think are kind of ancillary to, and some of the ideas that we've had but haven't got it all integrated yet. And I think Mike's vision for this was that eventually it would kind of be Square Desk, the Square Dancers desktop that would do choreography management and a whole bunch of other things.
I
Yeah,
interrupt much too frequently on these things, but I think
please.
I forgot in the introduction that you really want to pay attention, guys and gals, because one of the main features of this, just like SD View, is it's free.
Yes.
Yeah, the other thing about Square Desk is if you're a programmer, Square Desk is available in source code format, so you can actually hack on it yourself if you want to. And that's a little bit different from the other programs that are out there. So if you have an itch and you want to scratch it, you can do that with Square Desk.
And the other thing is that we have in the past, although we're not, I have obviously been lax in developing anything new. We have taken input and developed features based on things that people sent us, and on created issues on GitHub. So we are occasionally responsive to people, and sometimes we'll say, "Oh, that's a really good idea. We want that." At any rate, so the main page is the music page, the music player page. I had to flip over. I think this is because I'm in dark mode, which has a list of all of your music. You might notice that this is a little bit different from Square Desk's or Square View's 3 or 4 columns. We kind of work more with a search notion on things. So you can toggle or say, I want to find something that is patter because I'm calling the patter portion of my tip, or I want to find my singing calls, and that will quickly filter to patter or singing. And we have the ability to bind hotkeys to that. So I just hit Control T and toggle between patter and singing when I'm setting up my next tip. You double click on something to play it and it plays, and I don't think I shared audio, so it won't share audio.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Probably badly because it's probably playing through my speaker and back into my mic, but so at any rate, we have the usual controls for tempo, pitch, volume, and the left and right mix, because a lot of people create audio where, like for square dance queuing or for round dance queuing, they'll put the music in one side and the cues in the other side, and that lets them dynamically choose which is how what the relative mix of each of those things is. We have a 3-band equalizer, which I don't use a whole lot, except that for music with lyrics in it, I will often pull the middle range down so that the lyrics don't compete with, or the vocals don't compete with me as much. You might notice over here on the right, we have this little clock timer thing, and you might even notice that there's a little purple square here. This helps keep track of what you've done when. If you are currently playing, or it will provides different colors in the outer perimeter here for patter music, for singing music, and for your breaks. So you can see that, oh, look, my patter tip has gone on for 45 minutes, maybe, or the last tip it went on for 45 minutes. I should do something else. The other thing you'll notice is right above that is a little timer that is counting down currently. This is the patter timer. We have the ability to, and I think I need to stop sharing and go back to a full screen share, because I don't think that the configuration dialog box will show up here if I don't do that. Share screen. Oh, where's it? That one. Desktop 1. We'll get recursive for a second. And now we're back over here. So in the preferences, where is that? The timers are in, oh, there we go. So over in the preferences, you can set so that after 7 minutes of patter, we play some sort of sound or a visual indicator. After 5 minutes of break, we play a sound, and this has the short bell sound, and my dancers are all Pavlovian conditioned that when they hear that bing, they all run back out on the floor and start going. It's also worth noting that all of these, the tempo, pitch, volume, and mix, are saved per song. So you can, make all of these adjustments, including volume, if you need to do leveling by songs of different heights. One of the features that I really like is that we have the ability to add tags to music. So I think Mike has put a lot of work into the playlist stuff, and I will let him demo that in a moment. But I do my tips kind of on the fly, reading the floor and saying, oh, well, we need a little more energy now, or we need to bring it down and smoother. So I created this ability to put in tags, which is that for a given song, we can choose one of the many tags that I have created here, or just edit the individual tags for this. And the cool thing about this is that I can say, okay, the floor needs a little bit of energy. So let's type in energy. And there are the songs which I have tagged with energy. So I can say, okay, I want a patter song that hits hard, this next one, or I want a singer that hits hard. I also have a couple that I've tagged with nice, which is my, I need something that I am really comfortable with because I am losing the floor or losing myself, and I need music that I can really work with well. And I only have a couple of those that I really love. But those are what I do when I'm having a bad night and need to bail myself out. And sometimes I want to do like gray and square. So I have tagged things with SFGS, which says this is a singing call which has enough lyrics in it that I can call grand square or teacup chain in the breaks rather than something that takes more time. Let's see, where are we? And of course, now I have my, okay, there we go. So let's pop up so of course we have a lyrics page. And whoops, there's my song that we've taken a break too long.
Let me just say a word about that, Dan.
Yeah.
Could you pull up that dialog box again?
The
One of the philosophies of Square Desk is that the computer should do stuff that the computer can figure out and not have to count on the human remembering to do stuff. So with a regular break timer or a regular pattern timer, you got to kind of remember to click on a button or start the stopwatch, and then you have to watch it. What Square Desk does is it kind of knows that you're playing patter, and you don't have to click on anything. As long as you set this patter timer for after 7 minutes of patter, do something, it automatically figures out that the timer should have started, and it automatically figures out when that timer goes off. That's been very handy because I'm constantly thinking of a million things when I'm calling. I always forget to press the button on the timer. So this presses it for you automatically, and it works every time.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I or others throw in questions
Please.
as something you're doing? You just talked before. I have to remember what it is. In fact, I can't remember. Tagging things, is that what it was?
Yes.
You're just doing. So I'm assuming each song can have multiple tags.
Yeah, the like Friend Like Me has needs and work. Has a cue sheet, which is a reminder to me that I need to go in and tweak the cue sheet. A little less conversation has needs work, which means I need to practice. It has Elvis, which means it was originally an Elvis song, and has down 4 steps, which means that at some point I tried it and it was completely bad in my range. And so I need to try to fix that.
And the tags are, you make up your own tag and then tag whichever song you want with whichever tags.
Exactly. It's completely free form, although it does keep track. There's the edit tags, which is what I use. And then I think that people who are more disciplined about this, like Mike, don't just free form willy-nilly add gobs and gobs of tags. And so they can use this tags folder to say, to add and remove individual options.
Yeah, I also use it for organizing. So, for example, I have a tag called Halloween, which is orange. I have a tag for Irish. I have a tag for hot. I guess my equivalent of your high energy is hot. And because of the way Dan has written this, all of the, he hasn't done a lot with customizing the foreground and background colors, but I have. So all of my tags are a little bit more colorful.
Oh, so before I get over into the lyrics tab, because we have it, but there's other stuff to talk about here. One of the things that's really important to me is I don't like to repeat a song for several months before I get back around to it. And I call for at least 2 or more groups. So we have sessions, and sessions are configurable. Let me go back over to preferences on sessions here and slide my Zoom windows out of the way. And sessions can be, you can have sessions like practice here, which has no time, or like Vallejo Pioneers, which says that if it happens on a Monday, if you start Square Desk on a Monday, automatically choose Vallejo Pioneers as the default. What does this actually mean is that Square Desk keeps track of how long it's been for a given session that I've played a song. So I can sort things, and you can tell I haven't used this computer for a while, at least not on a Saturday. And for some reason it's, there we go. And say, oh, look, it's been 4 years since I've played Chantilly Lace. Maybe I can play that one again tonight. And obviously, as soon as the sorting here is causing some problems, you can choose which session you want, override that if you happen to remember which session you had. So you can see here that I have called for our local callers association dances, and so I don't want to repeat things there. Occasionally I guest fill in, and Napa and the IAG SDC convention, and similarly. So I can track what my music playing is for any given group and not repeat a whole lot of things regularly. Lyrics. So one of the things that I'm really happy about with this is that, we'll get to music organization in a little while, but I've got a friend who uses Windows and Square Desk, and he is, or Square View, and he is in his 80s and slowing down a little bit, was never a super techie in the beginning. So I end up doing a lot of his music management for him. And if you've ever spent a lot of time in Square View's Merry Lyrics tab, you probably hate it as much as I do. So one of the things that we do is we look through your music folders, and we look for files that look like they are probably the cue sheet for this song. So in this case, there's only one, but rather than the Merry Lyrics, we just over here let you choose from anything whose file name looks like it might be a cue sheet for a given song, which means that essentially there is no Merry Lyrics, and if we occasionally get it wrong, it's just a click there to get clear of. The other thing you'll notice on this page is we have in and out markers. This tells where the begin and end for the intro and the outro are. So this bar up here should pretty accurately tell you, if you've set those things, where your music actually starts, where your breaks are for the red tags here, which is great if you've ever had a square breakdown and you want to go back and restart at, say, the middle break. Also, unlike Square Desk, so unlike Square View, we don't deal well with cue sheets that are PDFs or doc files. Although I would like to address the PDF issue. I've done that for work, and now I'm ready to take it on for the for here. But we have the ability to unlock any cue sheet and start editing right in place. So here's an edit, and we can tag things with title and label and artist and header and lyrics, or clear the formatting. So this is fantastic for not just correcting the errors in cue sheets when you get them, because boy, as a newbie caller, the number of times that I found Swing Your Corner Promenade in breaks, and then knew that it was there, but still called it anyway because I never bothered to fix the cue sheet, was huge. So yeah, ability to save, load cue sheets is fully here. We have a tab for using SD, and we are probably going to kind of abandon this in favor of terminations, but the original notion was that we'd like to do build a database of choreography, and so having the ability to use SD in place was a good step towards that. I think Mike said he'd like to remove this, but we have a tab for dance programs, which can keep track of when you can keep track of each of the all of the calls in each of the dance programs, and you can check off when you teach them for each session, so that you can keep track of what you need to teach and what you don't for any given group. And then we have a reference tab, which takes a whole list of HTML or text files in a given directory and gives them to you so that you can easily flip between them, including, although I don't think it's working here right now, terminations. Mike probably has more stuff in that. Larry, I noticed that you have raised your hand.
Yes, I had a question about the cue sheet stuff you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I call for two primary. well, I call for 3 groups, but 2 of them use singing calls. And so I write all my singing call figures, and I also call other dances. So I have mainstream figures, I have plus figures, and I have advanced figures.
Okay.
And plus, I switch them out at every dance, like I reassign them. So I'm constantly dropping in new singing call figures,
Mm-hmm.
and I just paste them into the software I use. Is there a way to paste figures into your? I saw you could edit
Yeah.
the text right on the screen. Can you paste things
Copy
in
and
as well?
copy and paste work fine. Yes. And so the other thing that you could do is you could also, if you added like a dash plus and a dash greater than, or I mean a dash mainstream when you save them, the names are probably similar enough that the auto matching would still pick it up, and you
Okay.
could just flip between them here. The other thing that I have talked about, and Mike and I have been back and forth about a good design for this, is turning this into 2 panes so that you can have a pane on the right that has your singing call figure or your singing figures in there, because I toss in, singing figures randomly based on whatever my mood is at the moment or how the floor is responding. And I'm getting better about citing or memorizing those things. But yeah, just having a list of figures independent from the lyrics is super useful to me. What have I missed, Mike?
I think you hit the main points.
Okay.
Uh,
I noticed.
let's see. We haven't gone through playlists yet. Why don't we touch on playlists? I can project.
Let
if
me
you will
stop sharing and do that. And Mel, while he's getting that up, pipe in.
I was just looking at that. The other thing that Square Desk also does, like me, I like to marry my lyrics when I'm programming to set a table so that I've got the same table will come up in my patter call, and I'll have that same figure in my patter call that I'm going to be using in whatever singing call. So I have the layout just written out in tables, which you can also marry the lyrics and put the edit sheets on your patter calls as well, just as easily. It works
Okay,
really well.
that's an argument towards like having a secondary pane here. I think that
no, it's set to just come up in the window, the lyrics windows.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I just do it. I just label the patter call, and you can edit the tables the same way.
Cool.
Copy and paste.
So any questions so far? Otherwise, I'll jump into a quick explanation of playlists. So I use playlists a lot. I like to make changes on the fly, but I like to have a plan beforehand for what I'm going to do on a given night. So playlist uses this column over here on the left, this number column. What I tend to do at the club I'm calling at right now is I have a couple of tips that are just workshop-y tips. So I have these patter for the first couple of tips. And then the ones after that are patter followed by singer, just like normal. This is what I used a week ago. So we can set up a playlist and save all of the playlists. We can move things around as well. We can move them up and down. You can see I also use tags. I have a new tag here. I have a hot tag. There's some Halloween, Irish, Contra. So I use both tags, and mine are colored so that they can stand out a little bit better. And then the playlists, I have playlists that I kind of keep a record of what I'm going to do for each week. And that's pretty much it. You can edit you can move things up and down in the playlist. There are hotkeys that you can see. I'm moving Kisses Sweeter Than Wine up and down. I can right click here, move it to the top, move it to the bottom, move it up or down. I can remove it from the playlist. And then there's some menu items that allow you to save and load playlists, which is convenient. You can also edit these numbers over here on the left by clicking on them and changing that, and then it'll move them in the list as well.
Mike, I have a question. I've talked to Dan about this, but it's a request. Well, how am I trying to word this? When I was starting off calling for many years, I would prepare my whole dance ahead of time. In other words, create a playlist, at least in my mind, or pile the records that my 45s that way. As I got more experienced and pretty much knew where I was going, but worked also with feedback with the crowd and such, I would only prepare one tip at a time. Namely, as soon as my tip was over, I would grab a patter call and a singing call and cue them up, records
Yep.
there. When the break was over, I could go up and just throw those on the turntable and go. With your system, I can pick out a sing, cue up the patter call,
Yeah.
but I can't really queue up I have to go searching or put a keyword or something that I want for the particular singing call at that time.
What I
And
do,
and
I do them
and
like you.
I would like to be able to queue up a patter and queue up a singing also.
Yep.
And
So what I do, which is the same thing you do, is I double click on my patter to load my patter, and then I go find my singer and just highlight my singer. So then all I have to do is double click on that highlighted line when I'm ready to go.
okay, that
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
that's a good workaround.
Yeah. And Larry in the chat has asked about loops, and I noticed that you have a patter thing queued up. So explain loops.
Yeah, so this little bracket over here is the start of the loop. This little bracket over here is the end of the loop. And the loops can be set on the same page that you would set the intro and outro for a singer. For patter records, you can set the start loop and end loop. There's also, and you can do that manually by typing in the minutes, seconds, and fractions of a second here. Or you can, wherever you are, you can just click on the button and it'll set the loop point there. And then what I found is I like the loop to be fairly tightly figured out. So there's a test loop button here, which will jump to 5 seconds before the end of the loop. It'll play, and then it'll automatically jump back to the beginning of the loop. And if you like it, that's great, you're done. If you don't, you can make changes here to the numbers to get it accurate down, excuse me, down to the fraction of a second, and then test it again by clicking on the test loop button.
And
the
that's
start-
individual.
Yes, it's individual.
Record? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also turn that on and off. There's a key here. We can turn the looping off for each individual song. So it's Command L. You can see I can turn it on or off.
All right, just
If you have a
a
10-minute
question.
pattern, maybe you just don't want to use loops at all.
yeah, Mike. I don't know if it's just my screen, but every time you're doing something in your functions on the left of the screen, I can't see anything that you're doing. Your
On the menu?
yeah, on your menu, your drop-down menu on the left. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's just the way I've got mine displayed or not.
I think what's happened is that Mike is sharing the particular window. And so the
Exactly.
menu is, and because the window isn't in the top left of the screen, because this is a Mac and disconnects the window from the app,
Okay.
the window's showing up in the weird place.
Yeah, I can reproject like you did, Dan, and show the whole screen
Yeah.
if we
Which-
want to. If we
Well,
want to
but
look
the
at
nice
that.
thing about this is that it actually makes the font large enough that you can see all of the stuff. And yes,
Yeah.
obviously you can toggle the looping on and off, which is really, nice because you keep going, you loop 3 times and you say, okay, now I'm going to end it with the big outro of the song. And sometimes you get that right and sometimes you don't have that energy. The other question that Larry asked about was skips, and we don't have that capability in. I pull things into Logic Pro or Audacity and edit them there and build myself a song out of my source material that is what I want to use, rather than trying to do that inside Square Desk.
I have another question, comment. I don't know if now's a good time, but speaking of displays, I opened my copy of Square Desk this morning, and one of the things I was pleased to see is these columns you have, patter, there's a long column for title. You can nicely adjust the width of the different columns to put them the way you want them, just like you would on a spreadsheet or something. And this is really good. My question though is, and because I didn't try it, can you rearrange the columns if you particularly want something?
No, not right now. They can be turned on and off, but they can't be reordered.
Okay.
And you can sort, yeah, if you click on the top of them, it will sort by them or sort reversed by them on that.
That's also very handy. That's great.
Which is, yeah, I use that all the time on age, obviously.
I have a feature request.
Yes.
It concerns loops. What I'd like is that generally, you want your patter calls on loop and your singing calls definitely not on loop.
Yeah.
And so I guess the thing that I always have wished for is that I could set a bit on a song in a playlist. So it'd be a separate entry for each playlist. And in a given playlist, that song would have a loop bit for on or off that I could change. And then of course for by default, you might want to have a default bit setting per something, per playlist or some kind of other category. So when you load up a record and it's a singing call, it would go in there with the loop bit off by default. You could still toggle it on with your hotkey when you're playing it, but it wouldn't change the database entry.
Yeah.
And then if it were a patter, I want to maybe copy that song over to a patter playlist with the loop bit on. I guess that's it. Same
Well,
idea.
So what we do is we distinguish, we treat singing calls and patter music differently based on which directory it's in, and you can, or which folder it's in, and you can configure how you want Square Desk to identify these things. But if it's in a patter folder, we allow you to turn looping on and off. And if it's in a singing folder, we present that singing interface, which has where the different segments of the singing call begin and end.
Oh, that's pretty good. So I would just make two. I would just
copy it into the other folder.
Yeah, I would just put the
Yeah.
the MP3 in two different folders, and then it would
Yeah.
basically be doing the right thing.
Exactly.
Or
No,
just
that's-
create a link if you're familiar with links,
Yeah.
or an alias on the Mac.
And Larry's still got his hand up.
Getting back to the loops.
Yeah.
You want to pop that screen back up?
Like this one?
Yeah. So the brackets, well, they went away. Hey,
Well,
there
they're-
they are. Yeah. Can I click and drag those brackets?
No.
No.
Okay. And do you know what I mean by scrubbing?
Yes.
Well, if I can't drag these, then there's probably no scrubbing function, right?
No, you can
That's-
scrub. Well,
can't-
no, you can't scrub. You can go to you can reposition dynamically. You can drag the little dot.
Yeah, we can move the dot around, but it doesn't scrub as in plays at a faster rate when you click and hold and drag. That's
Yeah.
the normal scrubbing operation.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I've never heard that phrase before. What can you say what scrubbing is again, even though you're not doing it?
Yes. Yeah. In audio, scrubbing means to be able to click and drag against a waveform and listen. The faster you drag across the waveform, the faster the playback plays. And it's finding a good loop point. It's a way to create seamless loops.
Oh, so in other words, just as you drag the cursor along at whatever rate you're dragging it along, it plays the audio right,
Yeah, this comes
Yeah.
from old tape recorders where you would run the tape across the playback head. Yeah, that's where the term comes from.
Yes.
Yeah, usually the way I set the loops is I move the end loop marker way far over to the right so that it's out of the way. I click here somewhere toward the end. I tell it to play using one of the keys, and I just wait until it hits a point that's close to what I want, and then I click on the end loop button. That's the quickest way for me to do it.
Yeah.
And then if it's off by a few milliseconds or a tenth of a second, I can adjust that manually by tweaking the numbers and using test loop.
I think that's basically what I do in Square View.
Mm-hmm.
Except, except for test loop, I just, either move the cursor or restart the song or whatever. But yeah.
If there's a good idea, we'll steal it.
Yeah.
I'd also mention that I do use loops in singing calls. Not all of them, just a few of them. But I guess with your software, you just got to put it in the right folder.
Yeah.
Could you make another folder that has a different rule?
You can make, yes. In fact, Mike, you want to pop up? You want to do it or shall I do it? Pop up the.
Yeah, here's some extra folders. I have one for virtual reality. I have an extras folder. So you can make as many folders as you want, and it shows up in the type field.
And yeah, we have a couple of different classes, and basically we just do string matching. So you can call them whatever you want. And in the preferences dialog, obviously we create some.
Can you see this? Can you see the preferences here?
Yes. Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of basics of, it's either patter call, a singing call, or I guess with the called, we treat that like singing, but not like singing.
Yeah, it's if if there's a sample person calling it,
right?
Because the people usually don't want to mix their singing calls that aren't called and the ones that are called. It's too easy to make the mistake that you click on the wrong one and it plays the sample, the demo.
Yeah. And
I see. These are the types are the thing that's in the field, and the folder names are the label.
Yeah, and you can have as many different strings to match the folder name as you want to. Mine have semicolons and all sorts of names there. I separate them by semicolons. The other thing you notice here down at the bottom is when you first play a singing or first play a song, it can flip over to that the lyrics tab rather than having to flip that manually. Tony, you've got your hand up. Whoops, and I just lost Tony.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still not quite clear on the type column. Can you invent your own types that are not shown there? Can you create one with your own name, like contra or circle?
Yes.
You just, or no partner.
They will show up as black text, and you can still filter on them and do all of that stuff. You just
can you set rules for them, like looping by default or no looping?
Not individually, but anything that's in the patter column is looping is the default, and singers are looping is not the default.
This is what I'm not clear on. You can invent your own type and give it a name, but does it also have to be in the patter folder or in the singing folder?
Well, if you had a folder called Contra, but you wanted it to behave the same as your patter songs, you could put a semicolon Contra there,
like this,
and that would find anything that was in a Contra or a patter folder. You would still see it as whatever folder you put it in under type, but it would be treated as like a patter song.
Okay, I think I've got it for now. I'll have to play with it some. Thanks.
Okay. Mel, your hand's up. Whoop.
Alan's hand's been up for quite a while.
Okay.
My question was, when you're in songs and you change the speed or the pitch or does it remember that and give it to you next time?
Yes.
That's on a per song basis. Yes.
That's great.
So if we do Coffee Rumba, let's see, I can push the bass up a little bit. We move to Jailhouse Jump, it's back to the default. Move back to Coffee Rumba, and it brings back the bass.
What's extras again?
Extras is where I tend to put stuff like line dances.
I put like happy birthday and, you know, fanfares and things like that in there.
Oh, it's just because it has to be in some kind of type, and that's the do nothing special type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I mean that's a type that you can give a different color to.
So it's neither pattern nor singing.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
You can see what I have in here. Happy birthday. I have some rounds in here. Cotton Eye Joe, which I call it one night stands.
Mm-hmm.
And the last known type is vocals. So it just gets them out of the way so they're not mixed up with the regular singers.
Because we have all clicked on the wrong, well, some of you played the wrong side of the record, but
the wrong side of the record, exactly.
Now, and again, are there playlists per se or not?
Yeah, let's see if I can show this without showing the whole screen here. Maybe I have to show the whole screen, but yeah, I can load playlists. Let's see, I probably can switch to the whole screen. Let me do that.
Yeah, go for the whole screen, and after that, let's
see, share screen, desktop 1. Okay, it's going to make everything tiny, so it's going to be hard to see. But let's see, now you should be able to see this playlist menu up here. Can you guys read that?
Yes.
So we can load a recent playlist. I tend to organize mine by, I call for the Rockin' Jokers, and this is the playlist I used on 2022, February 9th. These are all CSV files. You can edit them manually. You can process them manually if you like. And once you have a playlist set here, you can just do save playlist as and give it any name you want. It'll save the playlist in a playlist directory that's in where you keep all your music. There's also a playlist folder, and it'll shove the CSV files in there.
Oh, and I know we wrote this, and I know I put stuff on there, but for European callers who need to remember what their just because I noticed Mike had the menu hot, if us US callers have it easy because we just pay a single flat rate and don't worry about it. European callers have to report their individual song plays to their song licensing agencies, and so we have a export song play history here, which can export a CSV of all of the songs that you've played between a given start and end date, which is super handy for that kind of stuff.
And that's session aware as well.
Yeah. And I've thought about various other features related to that and haven't.
Would that for instance, I'm assuming you use the playlist to do your practicing at home and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
When you export the frequency, when you practice a song, is that going to tag your frequency button on the edge?
What I usually do, well, that's where sessions are handy. I have a practice session.
Ah, good.
Yeah, if you can see that, I'm highlighting that up at the top there, Dan.
And it's, yeah, the sessions are completely configurable. You can
no, it's good because that way you can just export multiple CSVs for accounting purposes.
Yeah. You can say this for this group I played this and don't, the stuff that I did in my basement I don't need to tell anybody about.
Yeah, my earlier question was similar. Alan asked part of it. You know how you're saving your defaults per record, your default settings. When you set a loop on your playlist or on your patter calls, are they set? Can you set those as default settings as well? Because what I have right now, I've got my patter in one file, I've got my singing calls in another file. I have my default set for each one.
Mm-hmm.
When they come in, I like to keep all those defaults as per record. I don't like to loop. Generally, if I get a 7-minute or an 8-minute pattern, I try and cut it down to 4 minutes because I think that's just an aberration to me, but that's personal choice. When you look at it, but pulling that in and keeping all of those tempo, beat, everything else, as well as the looping, will that keep all that data the same as it will your audio data? Like tempo and pitch and everything?
So the tempo and pitch are all saved per song. When you switch to another song, it will switch to whatever settings you used last for that song.
Will looping save per song?
Yes.
I believe looping does save, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a general comment on looping that no matter what program you're going on using, but it's obvious to me, and I hope others, when they fine tune where the loop is, that it's the end of a phrase and the beginning of a phrase, so that when you loop, it sounds, you don't hear a jump in the music. You just may hear a change in instrumentation like was in there. But I do, in addition, and I see Dan nodding his head that that's obvious to at least Dan. The other thing that I think of, there used to be a thumb rule with 45s, patter good length is 1.5 through the record. And I generally set my starting loop somewhere about midway through the record. So I just, when I'm looping, I'm just doing the second half of the record. But if I really want to, that way, like Mel said, you don't get your record too long. You don't make an 8-minute patter. That way, if I want to go out with the music and work at it, I can just loop to the middle of the record and then get to the end of the record pretty quickly. And there's usually not enough change of instrumentation to matter missing the first part, unless there's a record that's got something you really want there.
Yeah, that's when I go into a DAW and start editing. I'm having trouble keeping track of all of the hands, but I did know Regina asked if we can say more about how sessions work. So you choose your session from the session box, but you can also go to the preferences and set up your sessions here. And this basically says if you start Square Desk after midnight on any of these given days, it will automatically choose that as the default when Square Desk starts. So as long as you, there we go. So as long as you, if you have this set up, as long as you remember to start Square Desk right before you start calling, it will automatically configure the session information for you. It doesn't work if you, like Sunday afternoon, you close your laptop with the template or with the practice session going and open your laptop on Monday evening and you're still set to Sunday practice. But I've just gotten in the habit of not leaving Square Desk open when my laptop goes to sleep, and it does wonders for keeping track of this session stuff.
Clark had his hand up.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the different types and Tony had his question, I thought it might be worth just saying a few words on if a round dance cuer was trying to use this program to do their job, what would they like or not like in terms of how the types work, et cetera?
So we have had a couple of conversations about potentially adding round dance features because a friend of mine has paid an amazing amount of money for whatever the round dance square callers all use for their music organization. And it's incredibly complex and he hasn't figured out how to use it, but we haven't added those features yet. So if people have suggestions, conversations, go for that.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's not using that one program that all the round dance cuers use. It has individual highlighting for the individual cues if you want to use it, as I recall, but they all use that one program.
Yeah.
Speaking of incredibly difficult, you've showed an awful lot of options that people can set and what have you. What little playing I've done with this, I found that you don't have to know about all these options. You can just get in there and use it. And then if you want to customize it and explore the other stuff, you can, but you don't have to fine tune it that much. It's great to have the ability, but don't be afraid of giving it a try. If all these options blew you away.
It's the mark of a good program.
I am really, really good at creating this explosion of features. And then Mike is really, really good at saying, what if we reduce this to a single checkbox and put it in here and make it behave automatically? So yes.
I like the teamwork.
There's if you notice the last page on the settings, or not, I guess there's global effects now, but experimental, there is a enable timers tab, which was an abomination I originally created that we eventually came up with the current system, but that pops another tab here, which has all sorts of additional settings, which you really don't want to have all running.
When I opened the app this morning, I noticed a cool little feature that I hadn't noticed before. When you go to a singing call, it shows you divisions where the breaks are and the timeline, breaks and pattern, breaks and figures are. But in addition, in the upper right-hand corner, it told you break 1, figure 3, whichever you are in words. And I thought that's a kind of a cool little feature.
Yes.
You want to show that?
Yeah, I'm kind of clicking here. If I just move the cursor around here, if I move the play point around, it'll automatically switch. And if we play it, it'll switch.
There we go.
And that's all based on the intro and outro timing, because it knows that all of these are going to be exactly the same length. So
How
it
do
just
you do
divides
that, Mike? They're going to be exactly 64 beats, but that's not necessarily the same time. Because
most of the music producers don't change the tempo. There are a few exceptions to that, where the tempo changes in the middle of the song. But for the most part, the length of the opener section is identical to the length of each of the figure sections, etc. So within a few milliseconds.
So you just divide it into 7 equal parts.
Exactly right.
Gotcha.
Does it do that automatically? Because there's a lot of songs out there that have either very long or no intros. Just start in there. And longer taglines, or is that a default, or does it actually cue on the music?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we default to something that kind of works with us, with standard 8-beat intro, but we don't automatically set things. Although I think Mike has been doing some BPM testing. Sorry.
Yeah. What I was wondering is, you see how you've got your let's just call it the scrubbing dot there. Yeah. If you have, for instance, something with a 16-beat intro, can you set that as your intro, and the rest should default automatically to your 64-beat phrasings?
Yes. So if I go to lyrics here, I'm just going to mess this one up. So let's say I decide that my tag starts here. I can click on out, and you can see how everything readjusted.
Okay.
Yeah. Same for the intro.
Yeah.
That's
everything
really nice.
will readjust. So it will default, but the default is rarely exactly correct.
Yeah, but your phrasing will still stay at the 64 beats for each.
Yes, that's correct. It always divides this by 7.
Okay.
Are you using a GUI toolkit that has CSS or anything, so that I could adjust the size of various fonts?
The answer is yes. It's not really straightforward to be able to do that, because that's kind of an advanced topic. But there is a CSS file that's used for all of the styling here. So these can be changed. Now, if you're not careful, you can mess it up. So this is not something that an ordinary user would do. But you can mess with. There is a CSS file that you can mess with.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be easy to make a kind of a mess, but like if I wanted, say, song titles really big and some class of not menu items, but labels, I could change them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Cool.
there's also an overall zoom setting.
Oh,
somewhere
cool.
In
Yeah, that's under view. So we can zoom in and out. There are like 6 different zoom settings. Here's the column control. I should talk about flash calls.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I'm noticing that it's exactly an hour since we started, and I'm going to do the usual thing here of saying that we've reached the formal part, and we're going to continue into the same format of informal in a moment. But I really want to thank all you guys for coming. Thanks for the good questions and observations, and hopefully there'll be some more, like basic questions of where can I get this, and you know, if I haven't used stuff, can I use it easily? I definitely want to thank Dan and Mike for not only creating this beautiful thing, but for presenting it to us and answering questions and listening to requests and such. Oh, and the usual comment that if you've only designated an hour for this, you're welcome to excuse yourself without making apologies. But let's have a hand for Dan and Mike for the presentation, and another hand for them for creating this great app. And with that, let's continue on with, I think there was, oh, you were about to present some feature you've forgotten. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, flash calls. So let me talk about that, and then since I'm still projecting, right? Yeah. So then I can maybe because this leads right into the tip planner thing that I've been prototyping recently. So I can talk for a couple minutes about that if that's okay as well.
Definitely.
So as a relatively newer caller, what I found is when I'm calling, I forget to call things. I forget to call a lot of the plus calls, and I need a reminder, or I get stuck. So we have a thing called flash calls. I can set flash call level to plus, flash call timing to be every 10 seconds. And then I'm just going to start it up playing here. And you can see it replaces the title with a plus call. And every 10 seconds, it's going to switch. So if I get stuck, I can just look up and I can see this big red call that says, oh, you forgot to call, you know, spin chain and exchange the gears. You probably haven't called that in a while. And then I can move the floor to a phaser where I can call spin chain and exchange the gears.
Is that just random call that pops up in the program?
It is random. Yeah. So you can control the levels. So basic, mainstream, plus, or one of the other levels. And all it does is it puts up a random call.
Okay.
Okay. And that has gotten me out of, you know, brain freeze many times. But what I found is now that I'm calling weekly for Rock and Jokers, I needed something that was a little more sophisticated than just here's a call that you might not have called for a while. And so you see this other thing that I have up on the screen here. This is what I'm calling, this is a prototype. Okay, so this is what I'm calling the Square Desk Tip Planner. Square Desk is now the marketing name. It's a brand now rather than just a single product. So what this does is it helps me even more when I get stuck. So I have a randomizer here on this first tab. So this says, remember, this is kind of the equivalent of the flash call. In this case, side face grand square 6 steps to align is something I don't call very often. This just reminds me I could do that. Here are some, in the green ones here are some calls. This is kind of also the equivalent of the flash calls, except I'm putting up 4 of them at once. And so if I get stuck, I can look down and say, oh, I haven't called left square through in a while. Let me do that next. And then down at the bottom, I have 2 resolves. One is a corner box resolve. The other is a 1P, 2P, or partner line resolve. Because frequently I get in a rut. What I found is since I'm a relatively newer caller, I do a lot of both modular and site calling, mostly site calling. And I don't want to get stuck doing the same old resolve every time. So I have a boatload of resolves in here. And I normally run this on an iPad that sits right next to my my laptop running Square Desk. So Square Desk runs the music, it runs the lyrics for the singers, and then when I get stuck on the patter, I can put this on the iPad. I can swipe here from right to left, and that'll take me to another random sequence with another set of random calls to do. So that has been really useful. I also have a whole boatload of sequences here. These are the same sequences that you'll find on cedar.net. I can, if I need a full sequence here, frequently if I'm calling hot hash, if I am not doing that by calling spontaneously and making it up on the fly, I will just use a known sequence here from cedar.net. Also, I'm working on being able to on the fly switch the singing call. So I have a number of singing call figures here that I can click through. And then finally, I kind of have a checklist. These are the calls, both plus calls in red and the non-plus calls in green, that I want to try and fit in sometime during the night. And so I have just a quick checklist here. I can check these off when I call them. And then if I get stuck, I can go here and call some stuff that I haven't called yet.
And that runs on iOS?
This is actually a browser-based application. So you can try this right now and it just automatically runs in your browser. This is the URL. It's currently not really public because this is a prototype. So if you go to https://zenstarstudio.com/helper, helper was my original name for it. I'll show you what it looks like when you go there. It's a prototype, so you can see I have all the different versions. The latest version is PWA 1.9, and you click on that and it'll run this. This is also, it downloads the entire thing to your browser, and that's in your browser's cache. So you only have to download it once, and then you can go to the dance and just bring it up. You don't need any more connectivity to the cloud to pull this down. All of the data, 15,000, 20,000 lines of sequences and singing calls are automatically compressed and downloaded to your browser and cached on your browser.
Mike, can you put that URL in the chat?
Dan just did. Dan just did.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And
Clark
has his hand up again.
So let me just say one more thing. So Dan and I have been discussing sort of tip management or sequence management for quite a long time. It's a relatively complex topic because everybody wants to do something different. You want to kind of be able to design sequences in something like SD, and then you want to kind of save sequences and arrange sequences in different orders for your tip, focusing on different calls. But rather than tackling that huge problem, I'm kind of tackling the problem that's right in front of me every week, which is that I get in a rut. And this has really helped to add variety to my calling. So that's kind of what I've been working on lately. It's a prototype. What was the question? There was a question there.
Well, a comment on that is sometime if you have a chance, watch people like Vic Cedar call with his program, or, me, I have 2 or 3 or 4 piles of material at the particular dance program. So if I need an easy sequence, a medium sequence, a hard sequence, a gimmick sequence, I don't really care about the order of them. I just care about the degree of difficulty and kind of what I need next, unless I'm theming something. And then maybe I want a pile of sequences that deal with blocks or whatever, or feature a call. So the question for you, especially since you work with your day job, is what are the chances of having something that is listening and understanding what you're calling as you're calling? So it could be, checking off frequency counts or things like that.
That is a tough problem. And I will say a couple words about that. Square Desk as it exists today, you can see this, what I'm pointing at down in the lower right-hand corner. Actually, it does have voice recognition built in. So you can talk to it, and if you're running SD, you can just say the commands and it will enter them here as if you had typed them. I found that I used that a lot when I first started, but I'm almost to the point now where I can type faster and more accurately than I can get the stuff in via voice. Voice is also subject to picking up noise. And even though I have developed a grammar for square dance sequences, it's pretty good about rejecting noise, but it's not good enough. So I'm no longer relying on this voice recognition input here for putting stuff into SD. And in general, it's hard because when you're calling as a caller, you're also giving helper words and other commands. And if you're not in the US, it might not even be in English. So you're going to call in English, if you're in Denmark, but you may give some hints in Danish. So it's kind of a hard problem to be able to figure all that out with voice recognition. Might be a fun thing to work on. I would love to see that. I know that there's been some, a long time ago, there was a study done where they took recordings of a large number of sequences called at a local hoedowns, and then figured out the frequency counts from those and developed some teaching orders based on that. I think things are probably different now, 30 years since that was done last. I would love to get some of that information on what's actually called. And more than that, where calls are called from, so we can get more of a sense of what's a sort of a standard position. We all have that in our brains, but I'd like to get some data on that as well. That's a hard problem to do with voice recognition.
Talk to Clark about that.
Alexa,
Clark did a lot of work on statistics like that. We talked a little last week, but Clark,
cool. If you have any data, I'd love to see it, Clark.
Clark, your hand is still up. Was that from last time?
And I noticed Larry's hand went up.
Larry's up and Mel's is up after that.
Yeah. Is it okay to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, with the voice recognition thing brought up a memory. I live near Boulder, Colorado, and Google has a AI division here. And so at lunch, when we pick up sandwiches, we'd often be hanging out with the Google people. And about 5 years ago, one of the guys said that they were working on something. They weren't going to tell us what it was, but that voice, he was talking about on the phone, but to be able to speak a text into your phone, he said it was going to become perfect. It was going to be perfect in, like a year or so. And then somehow the phone was going to learn your voice and get better and better to the point that it was going to be perfect. And so I had this false expectation, waiting for this new Google thing. But of course it never happened. And if anything, my phone is worse at dictation today than it was, 2 phone versions ago. So I can understand the complication.
It is hard to recognize speech. Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana.
Yes,
exactly. What I've done in some cases, like with the local callers group here, I have taken recordings and sent them off to be transcribed. But that can be done only as a combination of automatic transcription and a human actually paying attention, because there are too many words in English that sound the same. So it needs some expertise from a human in order to make that accurate.
Mel?
And I notice Mel's hand is up.
I was going back to what Chris was saying, where you have your zoom function for your font to make it larger, make it easier to see. I found, for me personally, I don't like that because it zooms in and it reduces what you can actually see on the screen. So like if you pulled up a lyric sheet, you've got all that dead space on the lyric sheet. Now, for me, I would have that full screen, which is what I do. But in the nice feature about the editor is I can go into a Word document, and what I do is I'll set my what I want, say a 22-point Arial, copy it, paste it in there, and then just save that as my default cue sheet. So now it's at something that I can set my computer, 15 feet away. It'll display full screen on the screen, and the whole thing is at a bigger font rather than try and mess with the fonts in there, because I find that's so cumbersome. Even on Square View, it's very cumbersome to start messing with the fonts. So I found doing it external and then just pasting it in really, really works well. That's just one of the workarounds. I didn't know if you had something like that. The other thing is, Larry, I feel your pain. The voice recognition software to pick up accents and pick up what you do. I know Helen's car and my car, my navigator works fine. I get into Helen's car and it recognizes an Australian accent. It'll recognize her voice exactly, but instead of going to Wagga Wagga, it's trying to take me to Wacka Wacka because of the accent. So I feel your pain.
This is an aside, but the computer voice recognition, also language translation. I've had a thing to work with that recently. I wrote a 2.5-page overview recently of what mental image is, and I've had a Japanese caller translate it into Japanese and then use software to translate it back into English from the Japanese, and the same with a German caller in German. And my proofreading the English to see whether they translated it right. Of course, I don't know if the English to German was wrong or the German to English, but man, you're 95, 98% correct, which is pretty amazing.
A long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that 2% can cause some real problems, but that's another problem.
Yeah, the same is true with the Alexa devices. If we are only 98%, 98% sounds great, right? But if out of every 50 tries, it turns the wrong light on or off or doesn't do what you asked for, people get pissed off pretty quickly.
Speaking of that, Mike, I used to say good morning to her every morning and hear a cute thing, and that hasn't been working lately. Is that a feature that's been pulled?
Not that I know of. I think it's still there. I don't know why it's not working for you, but I can submit a bug on that.
Alexa, good morning. Alexa, what time is it?
The time is 12:18 p.m.
So she's still hearing me, but...
Yeah, I don't know why. She used to have a clever thing that she would say every morning, yeah.
Yeah. My wife used to tease me about that, having this relationship with her. I noticed I triggered somebody else's also, but...
I noticed Tony's hand is up.
Oh, so
yeah. Where on the computer do you keep your music files? Do they have to be in a specific folder?
Now we get into management.
I seem to remember with, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they need to be in a specified folder. I just brought up the preferences. Hopefully you can see that. So this music directory, you click on the choose button and tell it where your music is.
Oh, okay. It has to know where it is, but it doesn't have to be named in a particular way.
The folders in there need to be named in a particular way to match what you want them to pick up for the types.
But as you saw earlier, you can add, semicolon, whatever, and have matching work for all of those.
So it's looks like a bit of a job, but it only has to be done once.
That's correct.
And,
and
if you're currently using Square View or Square View, you can probably just point this at your Square View, that wherever you've got your Square View music, and it will all work.
Okay, yeah, I'm not using Square View.
Okay.
The default on that, you can do that. I've got several, and like when I'm teaching or if I'm working or just practicing, it's just a matter of changing, go look here, and it'll just upload all the music folders in there. As long as you name the files, it works in both the same way.
Yeah, I think all my music currently is in a file called MP3. Isn't that what Square View wants? Anyway, I have Square View, but I've never really explored it to the point where I would make separate folders of different types of songs. I've been using Digital Music Magician, which is quite different in some ways. It makes you rename each song. It makes you type in a title for each song, which can be the same as the file name in your computer, but it doesn't have to be. And I imagine that if you're using, if you're used to something like SquareView or SquareDesk, that would be a pain to have to rename everything. But for me, it was wonderful because I use a lot of phrase dances, like at one-nighters, where I want to know how many times through the song it goes, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so I put the number right after the song title. So, like Arkansas Traveler 7, so that I can find it in a hurry if I needed a dance where there just happen to be 7 couples on the floor.
That's what I use the tags for.
So yeah, and also the other thing that I love about DMM is it has a comment field in the main grid, and I take it that's what you would do with tags in this program.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you had some things you wanted to remind yourself about for a specific song, you would create a tag that said that.
Yep. Yeah, and the tags they're highlighted by word, and they go into that big tags list. So you can use them as tags, but you can use them as freeform text. They're just a text block on each thing.
Okay, sounds good.
So here's an example of how I have my folders set up, my music directory. Right now I'm using box.net to replicate this directory across multiple laptops. So, and that does work. It'll share the database automatically across multiple laptops, and that's convenient because I can create a playlist on one laptop and then have it automatically go to the other laptops. So the Patter stuff all just lives in Patter. I just move stuff there. I keep my playlists here in a playlist directory. Well, let me talk about the reference tab for just a second. These numbers here in front of each of the things in the reference folder control the order of the stuff in the reference tab. And I do run terminations here as well, but I also have, these are PDF. This is a PDF viewer. So if you put a PDF in the reference folder, it'll come up as a separate tab. I also have all8.com's BPM. So you can tap here and figure out what the BPM is for a song you're listening to on the radio. I have the SSD 50 call lesson plans, how to run certain mixers, one night stand notes. There's a manual that comes with, there's the SD manual as well, and GDP stuff. But I have the definitions here as well. So that's all controlled. The ordering of that is controlled by these numbers that are on the front of each of the things in the reference folder. I do have a rounds folder. I don't have very many rounds there right now. I have some stuff I bought from Royal that I just stuck in here. Regardless of where you put songs, when SquareDesk starts up, it'll search for all of your MP3s. And it uses this, the name of the folder that it's in as the type. So you can organize them however you like. I have a test folder that has pink noise and silence and tones and stuff like that. There's my vocal stuff. There's some stuff for, we've been doing some square dancing in virtual reality. I have some special called 2-couple stuff that I've been using for that. Extras, I have some original. These are the original songs that these singing calls were derived from.
What virtual reality are you doing that in, by the way?
Using the Oculus.
On what system?
Well, let's see. I can probably show you. I have it right here. This is the headset.
Yeah, but on what's the platform that you're?
Oh, the app that we use is called Spatial. It's free for the number of users that we have, and it works pretty well. Spatial, you can also have people log in from their laptops or their desktops and participate as well.
I think Chris is asking Mac or Windows.
No. I was asking spatial or Roblox or Second Life or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's spatial. And so we have a custom room set up just for virtual reality square dancing. We have pictures of us on the walls, and there's a music player inside the virtual reality that we can use to play two couple stuff. We've been doing mostly two couple stuff.
So, Mike, did you go into the naming of the individual songs and how we figure out the publisher? And
I didn't.
Remember?
You want to talk about that?
Sure.
Or you want me to? Here's some examples.
Yeah, in Square View, you get the option of like looking for publisher, number, dash, title, or the other way around. We have that option, and then we also have a fairly complex rule set, which if you just say be automatic about this, does a pretty good job of figuring that out. So unless the producer does things like drop your cue sheets in without the song name on the cue sheet file name, as I'm noticing a lot of producers are doing, you can mostly just drop your music in the right place, drop your cue sheets in a cue sheets folder, and Square View or Square Desk will pick it up.
And I assume you have a manual marrying function like Square View does.
No, but what we do have is if it looks like it's close to a match, that pull down list on the lyrics tab will let you select from things that look pretty close. So it's not a full marry, but it is a it is a best guess marry, which I find a lot easier to use than the full marry.
Yeah,
issue.
I agree. I don't want to do anything manually like that marry operation.
Yeah, part of
I'm
the
not touching that line.
I just want it to be deterministic, so when I go to the record, it just always brings up the right lyrics.
It will, yes.
Yeah, it remembers which choice I make here in this drop down. So
okay,
this was the original cue sheet that came from Riverboat. This is the one that I created that I wanted to use. This is the format that I tend to use.
Oh, well, that's marrying. It's just got a nicer interface.
Yes.
Yeah. But you can't marry it against a randomly named lyrics sheet, right? The name has to be close. There has to be some sort of match, but the matching is done automatically, and it's sort of fuzzy, right? It doesn't have to be an exact match in order to show up in this list.
Yeah.
He has his hand up.
Tony's got his hand up, and then I have a couple of questions after that. Go ahead, Tony.
Does a song have to be an MP3 to be recognized? Because some of mine are WAV files.
We'll play a WAV file. We'll also play FLAC now, if anybody has any FLAC songs. Yeah, it doesn't have to be MP3.
MP4s.
Yeah, what about those M4 things I have from iTunes?
M4As. Let's see. Do I have any M4As? I don't remember.
And in particular, will the M4As play on my Linux machine?
I remember some wonkiness about this, but I don't know what the current state of that is. I think that at some point I was using FFmpeg to convert M4As to MP3s.
I'm getting pretty excited about this whole thing because I've been, like most people, using Square View all this time. However, I'm Mac-based at home, and I'm Linux-based on my laptop that I take to the dance. And I might get a Windows machine later, but right now I'm on Mac and Linux, and I've been running Square View using the Wine emulator, which works just fine, except that they haven't ported Wine 64 to Monterey yet, so I can't run Square View on my main computer at home. Only it still works on the Linux machine, of course. So if I switch over to this thing, I'll have a solution that runs everywhere, it sounds like.
Yeah, I have. So at some point, Mike and I have to get together and get me developing on Mac, because I currently have my calling Linux laptop, but that's like 12 years old, because my other Linux laptop died. But I will happily walk you through the build process for Linux, and because it's easier for me to do that than to build binaries. And yes, once that's working, it'll be awesome, and obviously I love it.
To answer your M4A question, I just pointed out here, I have in my extras folder some M4As. They do in fact show up in the list here, and I double clicked on it and press play and it plays.
All right.
So yeah, it does support M4As.
There's one other platform that I run SquareView on, and I actually had to do it last week because I got to the dance and my laptop was malfunctioning. And so I whipped out my Android phone and I ran SquareView off of the phone for the dance. Do you have any plans for any mobile support?
Not at this time. We have no real demand for it.
I think it would be really cool to have a mobile and especially Chromebook version, but we're talking about a market that something we do for free, and a market that is a few people, not even tens of people. But one of the things we're also looking at is Qt, which is the interface library that we use for this, has been going more and more web-based stuff. And at some point, I'm starting to wonder, why don't we just go over to a fully web-based thing? So, but the problem is we haven't found a good music playing solution within that lets us retime. So
I've just got this horrid visual that pretty soon the MA220 is going to be on the mobile phone, the computer program. You show up for a square dance, that's all you have is your mobile phone and a speaker.
Well, even in a lot of modern audio production gear now, your high-end mixers and stuff,
I know they're on the phone.
Will have some, they may be something that your phone talks to. On your hand on up.
We do have a local caller here who does exactly that. He has a speaker and his phone, and that's it.
There's a couple of things I want to know or think that it'd be good to do. One is for you two, but don't answer this one yet till I get the other one out for the other people. Let people know where they can get it, because I don't think that's been mentioned at all. And two, for those of you that are not super tech savvy, but just use the basics of some of the other programs, do you have anything questions you got for these guys, or features that you use on whatever you're using and wish they would include? Let's start with that. Anybody, somebody just posted in the chat, deep subject for a novice, maybe someday. And then backed away, so it's too late for that one. But for anybody else, any non-deep questions on the interface of how to use this and why?
Hey, maybe what you could do, there probably there's a lot of us on here who are super nerds or even developers or whatever asking all these questions, but there's going to be newbies, or well, not newbies, but just not super tech people. I mean, they could be very experienced callers, and maybe just fire the program up from scratch and do a quick little 3 or 4 minute demo of you don't have to go into any configurations or anything. You just click here and look, here's how you would use it.
Thank you.
I was about to say, Don, if you weren't going to have him do that, I was going to ask him to come and do that, because I do the other ones as well.
Yeah. There is also, for novices, there's also, as you can see up here, what we call a startup wizard. And so it kind of, for a brand new person, it will step you through how to create your new music directory and what you want the names of the patter singers, etc. directories to be. And you can also tell it where you want to copy MP3 files from. So if you have a small number of MP3s and you just want to get started, you can use the startup wizard and it'll get you started within about 2 minutes. There is a manual also. It comes with the manual. It automatically puts it into the reference tab. And that does also get you started step by step.
You want to, I think they were requesting that you just open it and play something.
Oh, right now?
Pretend you're at a dance.
I'm at a dance, so I already have it open, or do you want me to start it from scratch?
From scratch, please.
Okay. So let me quit this. I'm just going to double click on Square Desk. There's the splash screen. We need to update the copyright dates to 2022. It comes up. I already, excuse me, I already have a playlist set up here. But if I don't have a playlist set up, I just want to play something. Let's see. Let's assume it's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I would actually start by, I'm looking to start out with a patter thing. So set patter and then.
Yeah. So I'm going to just type in love because it's Valentine's Day, and I'm going to do Love Boat intro. So I double click on Love Boat intro. It shows up here, and now I can just press play and it'll play. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not.
We can't, but that's fine.
Okay. So it sounds good on this end. And that's pretty much it. You're all set. Playing your patter.
I have a request.
Yeah.
For a feature. Make it so you can triple click and it'll automatically start playing.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
I will go type that into GitHub right now.
That's good. Yeah. So normally you double click and then you can either click on one of these buttons up here, or most of the default keys are set to the same ones as Square View. So I can hit the period key, which will rewind me back to the beginning and start playback. So it's double click followed by period to get started.
And space will pause and start.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you don't have to do anything complicated. You take your, you got your music is already set up maybe for Square View. You go in here, you run the little help wizard if you need it to tell it where your directory is. The files are already set up the same way basically by default, and so boom, you're off and running, and you just click on your song and you go.
Yep.
Right.
That's pretty much it, and it just remembers everything for you automatically. If you come back, it'll remember the settings that you did for each song.
The only place it doesn't remember for you automatically is on the cue sheets page. You have to remember to hit save.
That's true. Yes, if you're editing lyrics, you have to unlock it for editing. And by the way, you can be editing while you're playing the song. We can unlock it, edit, and then save the edits.
Mike, while you're looking at the cue sheet, can you start and stop the music? Pause.
Yes. But remember, if you're typing in, if you're editing and you type, say, a period, you want the period to show up in the cue sheet. You don't want the period to rewind the music and start playback.
I was going to say that with the space bar also.
Yes.
That problem.
So the way we disambiguate is on a Mac, you hold the command key down, right? So you would use command period if you want to rewind the music and start playback, and you just type period if you're busy editing. That's why there's an unlock here. So unlock means that I want to edit now. You can see I have the cursor in here. Now if I hit period, it's going to show up in the cue sheet.
Gotcha.
Whereas if I hit command period or command P for play, it'll start playback.
Who is it that edits the cue sheet while they're singing the thing? Is this the most interesting man in square dancing from the beer commercial?
No, it would be me, but not while I'm calling it a dance. It would be me while I'm figuring out how I want to set up the figure for the dance beforehand.
And when I'm recording.
But now, if I understand what you said, when you unlock the editing thing here so that you can edit the thing, that switches the hotkeys from regular period to command period.
Yeah, essentially. Let's just use period as an example. Command period always controls the playback of the music. Command period will never put a period into the cue sheet. Period, however, just without the command, will sometimes go into the cue sheet, or if you're on the music player page and not editing, it'll control the music playback just like it does in Square View.
Sounds logical.
So if you always use command period, you're guaranteed that it will always control the music. But most people don't want to hold the command key down to control music. You just want to do it like it's done in Square View. You just hit the period key.
Right. So it does exactly the right thing, it sounds like.
I think so. But that's why we have to unlock this for editing, is so you don't accidentally edit the cue sheet when you want to control the playback, and vice versa.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sherry,
So
did you have a question? Sherry, you were waving your hand a second. No. Alan?
Yes, so when you're editing, does it edit in HTML and show you the code, or does it like if you want to highlight or not? How does all that work?
That's a good question. It actually is HTML under the covers. So if I unlock this for editing, I'm actually editing HTML, but I will not give you access to HTML because most people do not understand HTML, most ordinary people. So all you can do in this editor, it's very simple, is what's on these buttons. Okay, let me just make some edits here. I'm just going to hit clear formatting and it clears the formatting. I can double click, highlight opener and click on header. I can highlight a bunch of words and click on lyrics.
So it's using the CSS.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's all under the covers. I don't want people to, what I found is that you know, when I first came back to calling and people told me, well, the only way you can edit these cue sheets is with an HTML editor. I'm like, no, this is way too complicated. Nobody's going to be able to figure this out.
It's actually easier to edit in this. My question on this is, when you hit save, is that saving in the program for that cue sheet, or is that overwriting your original cue sheet in the where you have your file stored?
It overwrites this file that's shown right here in this window.
Okay.
You can see I have like 10 different versions of Dream Lover.
Yeah.
Many of which I've just downloaded. There's also a way that you can click on one button and it'll download, you know, 5,000 cue sheets.
Yeah.
So
I was just curious because I saw you have to save as.
Yeah, if you do save, it'll go to this one.
Well, the question I have is, I know in Square View, if I'm editing in the cue sheet, it'll save that in the cue sheet. It'll use that default on that program where I save, just like a default setting on a record. But then when I exit out, it asks me, do I want to overwrite the original or do I want to save this and replace the original? Does this do the same?
No, this uses the standard Mac approach of save will save it with the same name and save as will allow you to rename it. Yeah.
Okay.
So in many cases, like here, you can see I have Dreamlover.2.3.4, Dreamlover Plus. These are all ones that I either download or I've created myself.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Dream Lover Plus, basic, mainstream, A1. So
exactly.
On, so yeah.
Exactly.
So you'd go in here, you'd do your edits. You'd say save as Dream Lover Wednesday or something, or you know, Dream Lover whatever. And then when you come back to the song, you're going to have the option of which of those you want. You'll pick the special one you just made, and it'll remember that next time.
Yes.
Okay,
so let me just show you how that works. So I just did a save as. I'm going to change. It defaults the name to a name that's not already used. I'm going to call this Dream Lover Beck for Don Beck, and I'll say save. And you can see it. That's now a new option here in this list, and it'll remember my last choice here.
So can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So for us newbies that really don't want to make a mistake and not be able to undo it, is there a way that I can make a copy of the original first, and so not edit into the original cue sheet, and then so that I can play on the copy part?
Yeah, I usually do that by unlocking and do save as to make a copy. Okay. That for me is the easiest way, but you can also go into your lyrics directory here, you know, find the one you want to work on, and right click and do duplicate. Let's see, or make, what is it called?
Duplicate.
Here?
There we go.
There it is, duplicate. So it'll just make another copy of that with a different name. You can see here it renamed it something copy. Okay. You can then modify that, change it to anything you want. Hello test. And then when I pull up Monday, let's just go ahead and do that. Monday, and that should be another alternative here. So now it's an alternative here, and I can pull it up, and that's the copy that we made.
Okay,
And you'll
good.
notice something here that you don't have to have click the reset button the way you do in Square View. Square Desk watches those directories and reloads automatically.
Yeah, well, now the thing that you just did, the way you went into the Finder on the file system and did it by hand, that's actually harder than just hitting the Save As button.
For me, yeah, but some people might prefer it. It's kind of whatever is your personal style.
So in the comments, Mark Hart has asked about scrolling, and I think we have the capability to do auto scroll on cue sheets.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, let me pull that back. Let's see. I'm gonna go back and bring back the one I was using before. Kisses Sweeter Than Wine. And that's under here. It's called Auto Scroll Cue Sheet. And it will not scroll the cue sheet until we start playback. Let me just start playback. You can see it auto scrolled down to where it should be. I should be within figure 1, and in fact, I'm in figure 1.
And can I change or add lyrics as well, like original lyrics from a song?
You can do whatever you want in here. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a general purpose editor. You can put in here whatever you want. Now for auto scrolling, it knows it wants you to have fully typed out all of the figures. Okay, so you can see I have the whole thing explicitly. I've cut and pasted it so that I have an opener, figure 1. It wants exactly 8 lines for each of the figures and the middle break. But if you follow that, what it'll do is it'll scroll to where it needs to be just based on the line count.
I have a feature request.
Yes. Go for it. Go for it.
Something you always love to hear somebody say. So for manual scrolling, I imagine that I can use the up and down arrow keys to scroll the window in some normal way. And then when the feature request is command up and down keys, up and down arrows to scroll to the next or previous section.
So
instead of auto scroll.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know what you mean. Yep. It's a good idea.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have thought about, especially when talking about that friend of mine who does the round dancing, is ways to embed HTML or ways to embed specific time codes into the HTML, but that started to get way overly complex, and we wasn't sure where to go with that.
You could stick it in there with some random CSS class that just contains the time code data and have the program read the etc.
Well, there's also somebody whose name I'm blanking on right now who is constantly harassing me about, you need a karaoke format player for this, because the karaoke, he builds his own karaoke CDG files that do the karaoke lyrics on. And so I've been, it's one of those ideas that's batting around in my head. And I got a lot of stuff done on Square Desk when my dad was dying and I was flying back and forth to Ohio a lot. And those flights were a lot of uninterrupted time to write things on. So I need some other event in my life like that, and then we'll get those features.
We haven't had too many people ask for that, though. I think there's only one person who wanted specifically support for karaoke formats.
There's one person.
I wonder who that is. I wonder who that is, Mark. Do you know of anybody?
I've got a question about the automatic scrolling. Is that connected then to a time frame, I guess? So every 8 seconds, it goes one line further, or?
It does.
Therefore,
it is not. It is connected to where the playback head is here within playback.
Okay, because you said you need exactly eight lines.
Yes. So it knows how many lines for the opener, how many lines for each of the figures, etc. So, and we also know where the figure one, where the opener starts, where the intro is over and the opener starts. So when I know exactly where the playback head is at any given time, I can calculate where I should be on the cue sheet.
Okay.
And it puts that point roughly in the middle.
Because I've got a new system taking away all the calls of my cue sheets and having them just set up in lines. So you could either call like circle or grand square and know where you're at in the 64 beat frame, but have hardly any calls because, you know, I want to use all kind of levels, the singing call. And so it doesn't make sense to me to always have fixed routines or figures, right?
Yeah.
So that would not work with the system then for scrolling.
So this is where my feature request for manual block scroll up and down comes in. Because you just turn off the auto scroll and you just hit the key to go to the next or previous section that you know that you want.
Yeah, so maybe it goes there for opener, you hit command down and it goes there. You hit command down and it goes there, etc. Yeah, that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just turn the auto scroll off.
Or if I had a cue sheet that only had one at the top that said opening, middle, closer, break, and then another section below that said figure, I could just you know, toggle up and down between those by hand.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You can toggle back and forth, command up and command down.
If you put that in, then all of the super fancy, super complicated automatic scrolling timing feature requests get deferred.
That's essentially what I was asking, Chris, was if when you turn it off, do you still have the ability to drag it down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you do. And you can turn it off for sure. That's under lyrics. Just click, select this and it'll turn off the auto scrolling.
With modern 2-finger scroll, it's really easy to, you know, have one hand free and zip things around in the cue sheet.
So with square view, you click on the Y key to fade out. Does this have that?
Yes. I find I don't really use it, but it is there.
So something else to show here is this is really heavily configurable, but all of these things can be, all of these hotkeys can be reconfigured, and yeah, you've got lots of options in the menu.
I forgot to mention the sound effects.
Yes.
So, you know, you want to call load the boat and you want it to go auga, auga, auga. There's sound effects. There's default 6 sound effects, and you can add to these and change them, and they're attached to command 1 through 6.
Oh my God.
Whistle, clown honk, applause, fanfare.
So the dancers won't have the fun of doing the toot toot because you're doing it for them.
Oh no, it's they'll still do it, but usually there's somebody out there who has one of those actual wooden train whistles for track 2.
Yes.
You'll be that guy now.
Yes.
Yes.
It's also handy to have the sad trombone sound for when the square really goes wrong.
Wah, wah.
The best one I liked was a fellow came to a dance, you know, the wooden train whistle.
Yep.
Yes.
He bought one of those automatic when they did the track 2, and it just stopped the floor. It says, "Oh, sorry, it's a diesel electric."
I'll have to put in the sound effect of the crowd going, "Oh," or I'm recalling the card because I read it wrong the first time.
This might be a general question for all computer programs, but is it possible to create a memory thumb drive that has both the Windows and Mac version and all your records, so that you just go to a dance that somebody else's computer is there, whether it be Mac or Windows, you plug it in and you can take over?
We have something that's close to that. Well, first of all, there's under File, there's a thing called Backup to Flash Drive. It'll take all of your songs and stick them on your thumb drive.
Okay.
Now, when you are at a dance and somebody else is using SquareDesk, if you plug in a second thumb drive, it will merge, it will detect that automatically and merge those songs in to the song list. I don't think I've ever used that though, because we don't have enough people who, at the same dance, multiple callers calling at the same time without their own laptops, and they just have a thumb drive.
I'm just thinking of, again, somebody, going to a computer that doesn't have anything on it. But
yeah, we have almost that, yes.
The question, I was going along the same line as you were asking, Don. Can you load the program and your files on the flash drive when that backs up? Because, for instance, if I went to Dan's dance and I was using SquareDesk, I could plug it in. It would load up my version of SquareDesk while his was running, because that way all my default settings are there. Because my default settings would not be the same as Dan's default settings.
Yeah, correct. I'm not sure that we fully implemented that, Dan. I think we have something that's close, but I'm not sure that it's exactly that.
Well,
and neither of us uses that, so
it'd be nice if you were able to have both the Windows and the Mac version on a particular thumb drive. So no matter what computer you were plugging into,
that's a good point.
Yeah, it might be possible, and if it isn't possible, you could certainly put the install packages for each on there.
Yeah.
And where
on a Mac, that's going to be, when you plug that, first of all of this sounds to me like I need to walk over to a computer that doesn't have, and we're saying SquareDesk, but what we really mean is a computer that doesn't have enough viruses on it yet. Who's going to let you stick a random thumb drive in their computer? But if it's a Mac and you do all this, when you stick it in there and you go click on, let's suppose that that you have an application bundle on a FAT32 thumb drive, and you jam it in your Mac, and it's happy with that, and then you click on the SquareDesk that you have on the thumb drive. The first thing the Mac is going to do is say, oh, look, a new application, and then it's going to have to scan it for viruses, and that can take a long time. Practically speaking, I don't know that anybody's going to be, at least on a Mac, and I probably on Windows, but I don't use Windows, jamming random executable programs on thumb drives into random people's computers, and as you're changing callers at the thing or whatever in a tight time frame.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yes, absolutely. There's a risk associated with a feature like that.
Yeah, I know when they did the dance in Adelaide, that was one of the things. Every caller was there. All of their drives and everything else were scanned prior to, as part of the setup. It was there. It was on the desk to make sure that didn't happen. The other feature that you've got is if you have just your music with SquareDesk, same as with SquareView, you can just plug it in. And you know how you're doing the semicolon default find in files, just tell it where to go. It'll add that Mike's music files, if he's calling it My Dance, bang, and then it will just go and load it onto his program, your music files. You can select them the same way. I believe that's correct, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it'll merge them in, and you can select the ones from the external drive. Yeah. Well, a lot of these features also were developed for our callers workshop. So, for example, I just pulled up the preferences here. 30-second warning before long tip warning. We basically would rotate callers every so many minutes. And so we would set the pattern timer to be so many minutes. And then 30 seconds before the end, it would give you a warning. It literally says long tip warning, I think. A person comes in and says that. And then that tells you better wrap it up quick, because you got somebody right behind you who wants to start calling.
Before you, on the subject of the long thing, it might be better if you had an option for visual only warning that flashes the screen or something. So that,
yeah, we do.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised, because you're doing a lot of things in the do what I mean category. Right thing stuff. this program seems to have a lot of really good design in it. The thing about sticking the thumb drive in and having it use only the thumb drive songs, I guess you maybe you don't have that totally working yet, but it seems like that should be possible. You put something in, you put an init file in the application bundle itself, or you put a .ini file for the Windows one or something like that, and it looks for that first, and whatever. But again, if you take a thumb drive, whenever you run a new program on the Mac, you can't like pre-scan it. On mine, if I were to stick a thumb drive into my computer, into my Mac, and then click on an application that's on there, it's going to come up with that thing, and then it's going to take like 6 or 7 or 12 minutes to scan just that one program that I asked it to run, and then it'll be available to run it. So that, so practically speaking, it seems implausible that people are going to be doing that with at least with Macs.
I think it's a sure don't depend on that feature.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about syncing across multiple laptops where you've got backup laptops and?
Yeah. So I've tried. Sorry, was that your question or?
Yes, about syncing across multiple laptops. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've tried most of the major syncing programs that are free. They all have disadvantages. I will say that they all kind of work, but they don't work great. The one that is the best that I found is Dropbox, but Dropbox doesn't have enough storage in their free tier for me. So I have moved away from Dropbox because I'm cheap. So I'm using box.net right now. SquareDesk will allow you to automatically use these file syncing programs to automatically sync multiple laptops. But with box.net, for example, as soon as you make a change to your music directory, box.net will lock your directory for some number of seconds while it copies over to the cloud. Okay, Dropbox does not do that. Okay, Dropbox's disadvantage is it doesn't give you very much space. It only gives you 2 gigabytes for free. And then you have to go to a $10 a month plan, which for me was too much. But Dropbox did the syncing very well. It didn't lock the directories while it was syncing. Box.net gives me lots more storage, but it locks the directories, and it's free.
Mike, I finally gave in to Dropbox maybe 2 months ago, not because of the additional storage, but so I can use it on more than 2 or 3 computers or phones. Or
yes, that's its other limitation. Yeah, you can only run it on a couple of.
It used to be
couple of devices.
I
and
use
actually
a non-cloud-based syncing program called Unison that works on all 3 platforms, and it's a free program. And so, once a day, or whenever I'm done screwing around for a while, I just run Unison, and then my desktop then goes and updates my other desktop and my laptops and everything for me. So that's how I keep my music and everything in sync.
I'll have to try that one. I had not tried that one. I have tried Google Drive. Google Drive is very complicated. They recently switched the way they do syncing, and now they mount a separate volume, which is confusing. So now you have 2 copies essentially of all of your songs, one that's on a mounted volume that is shared and the other one that isn't. I found that to be too difficult to use, so I moved away from Google Drive.
I used to use Google Drive, but it stopped working on El Capitan, which is my older Mac computer, and so I just gave up on that. But I've been using the non-cloud Unison thing for a few years, and it just works.
I'll have to try that. I also have a paid version of what's it called, iCloud Plus, which is your Mac file syncing. It has some similar problems to for the way it does syncing. So right now my primary one is Box, And to get around the locking problem, what I do is when I do a lot of edits, I will turn off Wi-Fi while I'm doing the edits. And then when I turn it back on, it'll automatically pick that up and resync everything to the cloud.
And it is worth noting that, so I have thought about the prospect of trying to figure out how to resolve situations where you have two laptops and you're playing music on both laptops and you want to keep the history information, but there is a single database file which is easy to find that you can copy back and forth if you want to make sure that just that keeps up to date.
What I do with on SquareView and Unison is that I have it. You can tell it I want this and that and the other directory synced, but you can also give it exceptions, and so I have it not copy a few of the files that I want to be different on the different machines, even though it's syncing up the rest of the files in that directory.
Yeah, I like my database to be replicated, Dan. So the way SquareDesk currently works is if it detects that somebody is already, it uses a locking scheme. If it detects that there's another laptop that is currently using the database, it'll warn you and it'll let you override that lock if you want, because that's usually the right thing to do. But you can't be making changes on two laptops and have them not collide at some point. You kind of have to know what you're doing. So you have to be a little bit careful with these file syncing things. Like you say, you can make an exception for the database if you want to keep separate databases. But I usually if I'm changing the tempo on a song, I want that to propagate to all of my laptops.
Yeah.
Mike and Dan, I've asked this question a few times. Are you guys avoiding it? Where can people get this?
Squaredesk.net.
It's been posted to the chat 3 times, I think, 4 times.
I don't read the chat. I can't multitask. I look at it later. Okay, so squaredesk.net.
Yeah.
And you can get the Windows or Mac version. And
yeah.
The Linux version, you got to talk to Dan.
Yeah, for the Linux version, talk to me, and I will happily work you through that.
Yep.
We've been saying I'm going to do that on mine on my Chromebook for a while and haven't gotten to it yet. But
yeah.
Now, also the source code is out on GitHub, and I believe, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think anybody can open a ticket out there. So if there's a bug or anything, you can open a ticket and we can take a look at it from there, or just send us some email and we can take a look at a problem and we'll open the ticket. So we keep track of all of the feature requests and all of the bugs that have been found, and eventually we get around to fixing them.
As Dan and I, when we were talking the other day, he said if your price is low, you make it up in quantity. Do you guys want this to be widespread? Should everybody here be telling their friends about
it? Yeah.
It's kind of up to you, right? I mean, with the more people that use it, the more feature requests and more bug reports we get. So it does take time for us to do this. Both of us have put in probably many hundreds of hours into this. So I'm not looking to, spend more time on finding bugs, but
but if there are another couple of Square Dance nerds who get excited about this, then we can spread the weight a little bit further.
Yeah.
And Mel asked about a real newbie session. If there is a new user, Yolanda, I'm speaking to you, who wants to use this software and would like some hand holding through it, and so we can create a video of what it's like to go from absolute zero through this. Let's find a time to Zoom on that and do a screen share, and that way we can record this and make it a resource that's available to people. Because that would be, I think Mike walked through it. It really is that simple. But if it would be useful to have really the step-by-step, having me, having somebody who's really new to this and not terribly technically sophisticated go through it with me available to answer questions would probably make a great little video.
Okay. And the focus of the question was I've had Terminations, I've had Colorama. I'd love to have you guys, but I'm not going to usurp what you're doing here. Mike, I think the program is great. And for all of you that know me, I'm anti-Mac, mainly because it was forced down my throat when I was in the Army and it came out. But that's a whole different story. But it doesn't have to be for new callers, but for any caller that wants just a basic, here's how you download the program, here's how you sync your music into the program, here's how you start using it step by step, and then you can start to play with the help desk. And if you're going to do that here, which I would love, let me know ahead of time, because I'd like to promote that, because there's a few in my sessions as well that are more Mac based than are Windows based. And I give them just the same hard time I give Dawn as well, but that's beside the point. But if you're going to do that, please do, because I've had them both for the other sessions. It's a very, very good thing to just, instead of digressing into the technical whoppity splash CSV file, which doesn't mean anything to somebody, here's how you use it. Here's what it looks like. Okay, now take it and play, and you can interface that play.
Yeah.
You guys willing to do that here on one of our sessions?
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I think we need the newbie who's wanting to come through this process.
What we'll do is we'll make the newbie actually do the steps. We won't.
Yes.
We'll just help them through that.
Yeah.
That way you end up with it working on your system, right? And everything should be good.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Let me know when you do it so I can let people know ahead of time.
Cool.
Yolanda, do you use Mac or Windows? I can't remember.
I use Windows. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
I just downloaded it to my Windows earlier in the meeting. And I noticed that it sucked in already all the music off my computer.
Yeah, depending on where you point it at, it can be daunting. If I pointed it straight at my standard, my everything music directory, it would have a couple tens of thousands of MP3 files in it. So I have to point it specifically at my Square Dance music.
Yeah, right now, every music that's on my computer is on it. So
yeah, you got to be a little more focused than that.
I'll focus it more later.
Yeah, I've got a question as well. I've been working with Caller Caddy and Square View on two different Windows, which laptops, very small ones, which have never seen the internet. So my data are transferred via stick from my main computer. And but I have switched to Mac using Mac Air for all my business type stuff. And traveling now, I would like to also use the Mac, my Mac Air for using music. I have not done that yet. My question is, that would work with your program, and what would be the costs?
No, the MacBook Air, Mike just recently got it working on the new M1 chips. And it works fine on the older Macs and MacBooks. It doesn't work on the iPads, but in the MacBooks and the Airs, it should work fine. And the software is free.
Cool.
Square Dance calling is a hobby. It's a very expensive hobby. Software development makes it an even more expensive hobby.
And so I probably would need help to set it up there, because I would not like to have it have access to all kind of music I've got on the computer, but just to the Square Dance type songs.
If you understand how to see folders when it sets up, when it first runs, it will go through the startup wizard and it will ask you where to look for music, and you just point it at your Square Dance music. The default, I think, is to point to your music folder, which then you end up with the horrors that we're talking about.
And that's one thing with the Mac. What I've realized, that same with pictures, that it puts everything in one big basket, and then you just create folders by naming them or marking them. I guess it does the same thing with the music, but I would like to have just the folders that possible on a Mac, where I would say singing calls, pattern, hoedowns, or would it just throw all the music in like Mac usually does?
You
can direct it.
Yeah, what I do is I have in my music folder, I have a Square Dance folder. And inside that, I have something that for historical reasons is named SD card, but is kind of like my active square dance music. And then inside that, I have the singing, patter, vocals folders. And I point to that folder underneath square dance and just put my square dance music in that folder.
I think we have our Newbie for walking through the beginner thing for Mac as well as Windows.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
I'm a Windows newbie too.
That's yeah, and I'm not sure. The last time I tried to, I know Mike has been the Windows build is kind of a pain in the butt for him, and I never got it. I might have gotten it working. I tried to get it working on a virtual machine on one of my machines. Last time I tried to run it, I think we might have had a problem with it trying to rescan folders a little bit too frequently, so performance was a little weird. But definitely one of you Mac users, let's find a time and record it. And if you want to do that on a Saturday morning with the whole world watching, we can do it then.
Ooh, living dangerously.
Yes.
on a total aside, hi Joe, it's been a long time. Nice seeing you. Glad you joined us.
Are there plans of making that run on an iPad?
This is Mike and I have been talking back and forth about moving. The problem is we need a cross-platform solution for the audio processing. Right now we're using something called LibBase, which is the same thing SquareView uses. And we have talked about moving the user interface over to something that is entirely HTML that would be easily portable between all of the different platforms, including mobile. But we don't have a good solution to the music playing problem, the problem of retiming music and changing pitch. That we
I am working on that.
Okay.
So LibBase is the one piece that and SquareView also uses it that we don't have in open source. I have now removed LibBase and I use the underlying code that's available in open source to do the same processing. So it might be possible. The problem is that it's a lot of work. And, you know, because this is all open source and because we're doing this in our copious spare time, unless there's a real need for us to do this or a real demand for it, this is not an itch that we need to scratch right now. So it's not high on our priority list because we both have laptops. We both use the laptops for calling, and we don't need to use the iOS or the iPad version. We don't really need it right now.
If budget is a concern, I think it is easier to go find somebody's old cast-off laptop, install Linux on it, run Square Desk on that, than for us to port over to iPad. One of the big problems is that there just aren't that many Square Dance callers. This is not a huge market. So even doing this as an ego project rather than a scratching my own itch project is, there's just not that much ego to be gotten from it.
Well, we're hoping that will change one day.
Yes, I'm trying to put my extra energies into that side of the problem rather than the building the software side of the problem.
Well, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say a hearty thank you to you for doing this.
Yes. Very much so.
Well, thanks. It's been cool to scratch my own itch and have software that works the way that Mike thinks it should work, which is usually the features that I want, but a user interface that actually makes sense.
Mike, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. I noticed in your files you have a foobar file right at the top.
Yes. A lot of the stuff I do is testing, so I have all kinds of wacky stuff in here that's not normal. Yeah, I have weird files in here, and when I'm testing, I usually just create a directory on the fly. Foobar is as you know, is a traditional name used by programmers when they don't want to bother to think up a more clever name.
What could be more clever than that?
Cool. All right. So we have Paul and Yolanda and a few other people who expressed interest in an intro session. So tell you what, why don't y'all talk to Don and tell him find a spot on the calendar when we can do this on a Saturday morning, and that way it'll work in my schedule too.
Okay, Don, what he just said.
Yeah. Don Beck at donbeck.org. Let me know. And probably, I don't know, Dan, should we do a follow-up next week? Or I think we should leave a few weeks breathing space in between. It depends on.
I think it's great to leave a few weeks breathing space, but people are wanting to get started. And the real question is, who else do you have lined up?
I've got several people that are saying, yeah, soon, but I don't have anybody lined up for next Saturday. But I think what might be nice is if we did if we could keep a couple weeks in between and advertise that this video is up, and for people that want a more introduction, they could get more people looking at this. And then
okay, on the other hand, I don't want to stop a new user who wants to use this from joining or getting going soon, which I guess is another way of, if you want to get going sooner, holler and we'll do something out of band and create another video.
Dan, I think that was probably a good idea what you're saying. If they have an interest, like I know Mark and Yolanda were knocking their heads furiously there at one point. If they could get together with you or you and Mike and look at how it's done, look at how it's used, and then use like either Mickey or Mark or somebody that uses Macintosh, as Mike was saying, you're going to be sharing your screen. Here's how you load the program. Here's how you go through it. Here's how you set it up. Here's how you start calling step by step for new users. As that, I think that would be definitely a worthwhile session to look at. Even for experienced callers. I don't use the program, but I've learned an awful lot. Actually, I've learned an awful lot about what I can and can't do in SquareView just by attending this session, because there's a couple of things that they're exactly the same. I just never thought of using them that way. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm sure it'll be vice versa.
My thing is, if I download this Square Desk, but my SquareView has issues because the person that helped me set it up wasn't a caller, and so when we started setting it up, the title and the label and the type, it all got mixed up. So I put some on a stick and then put it on a computer that didn't have anything connected to the internet. And so now I'm trying to fix, so like my pattern at the moment, I am taking the label out and putting it in the title separately, so they will all go alphabetical and stuff. So my thing is a mess at the moment. I don't really want the mess in my Square Desk.
It is quite possible that Square Desk will just figure that out, but we can do that whenever. I notice Patrick has his hand up.
Yes. I was going to say Don records all of this each time. And since if he did this next week, it would be recorded. If somebody missed next week, they could just bring up the recording and listen to it at their convenience. So it wouldn't be needed necessarily to advertise it to everybody and have them all show up and get their hands up at the same time. It would be, there's my input.
Pat, actually, I record our metal image sessions, but Dan's the one that's recording these, but he puts them up and they are there. We could do it soon and then recommend people watch the other one first and then this one afterwards if they want to get deeper into it.
I think so.
Are we still sharing screen, or is there no need for sharing the screen? And can we put everybody on
we can go back to seeing the people. Hey, there's people.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.
Just, I know I'm not going to be there, but are there going to be at Caller Lab sessions on these programs?
I'm not going to Caller Lab because of COVID.
Yeah, I'm not going to Color Lab this year either. In the past, there have been sessions, but they've been sessions mostly on SquareView.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's where I'm sitting, because I know some callers like Colorama for the 3D effects and the voice interface. Some people like Square Desk because they're Mac users. Some people like Taminations because of A, B, and C. Some people like SquareView, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Different people like different programs. And that's why I'd like to see more of what each program does from the actual user interface at the start level, and then get into the technical whoppity splash gobbledygook level.
The actually,
I'm not a programmer, you can tell.
Dancerama and Taminations are one class of things.
Yeah.
There's Square Desk and SquareView and Vic Cedar's program.
Yeah, I was just using them as examples.
Yeah. Is there a third class? Yeah.
Well, and we were hoping to kind of cross with integrating SD. We were hoping to kind of cross that, but I think Taminations has lapped us, and we are still figuring out how to organize things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm now taking a class for C1, and the C1 callers in this area are using SD. They don't use Taminations.
Mm-hmm.
But at lower levels, I think Taminations makes more sense.
Taminations is not really made for writing choreography as SD is. SD is in for writing stuff. Taminations is more learning the calls, and then the sequencer is good for some practicing and what have you, but not specifically for writing, to my knowledge. I find Taminations interface easier than SD, and I find Taminations a fantastic aid for me when I'm teaching mental image, but SD is something I've dabbled with for years. I found some Mac interfaces on occasion. Any other?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Don. None of these programs should be used for writing choreography, in my opinion.
Well, SD should. That's what it's for. That's why it doesn't show animations or anything. It's just writing choreography.
I haven't seen any Color Lab sessions on anything other than SquareView. I think there might have been what's that one called? DMM, Digital Music Musician. I think there was a Birds of a Feather discussion on that, and I think maybe 5 people showed up.
That was on music editing, or music crafting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so I just don't think, other than SquareView I think has like 99% of the market, because 99% of callers use Windows devices.
And SquareView is decent, very good. The price is right. It stays up to date. There's a good reason for it.
If you know how to install it, it runs on all the platforms. Like I said, I use SquareView, and that's on Linux for the dances. And when I'm at home, I'm on a Mac. However, the latest version of the Mac operating system, Monterey, won't run SquareView because the underlying technology hasn't been updated yet.
Well, I think we've kind of reached that natural pause in the conversation where maybe we should get on to the rest of our day and carry on.
Yeah, we all have to go download Square Desk.
Yeah.
You mean 2.5 hours is enough?
So Dan, now a good time for you to show me how to change some session names?
Sure. All right. We're going to have a tech support session for Mark here. If you anybody else wants to be here for this, go for it. But Mark, why don't you share a screen and pop up Square Desk?
Just one question before you do that,
yeah.
Dan. I downloaded your program quite a few years ago now.
Uh-huh.
So can I just download the new version and just install it exactly the same?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Should
thank
be
you.
able to, yeah.
Yeah.
When I downloaded it a while back, I think maybe one of the things I was trying to play with was the voice input feature, and it didn't work. It caused some problems on the machine, in fact, when I tried to use it. And but I'm not interested in voice input at all. It was it's not really something I'm ever going to do. So I guess I probably won't have an issue with that this time.
Yeah, I think if you don't turn it on, it doesn't happen. I don't know. I haven't played around with that much, other than that I think I got it working on Linux once and then went off to do other things.
Oh, this was on the Mac.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think
should work on a Mac, but just leave the mics off. There's a key sequence that you can use. There's a menu item to just turn the microphones off, and just leave them off and it should be okay.
like the old Bob and Ray routine says, if it hurts when you do this, do that. Don't do that then.
Yeah, don't do that. I think going forward, because we don't really use it, the voice input is probably going to go away.
And the SD part will probably go away and be replaced by terminations or something. But yeah, we need to set that into a database or some way we can actually reuse the information that we type into it.
Yeah, let me do a quick screen share here just to show one of the reasons that it's nice for us to have integrated SD in here, is that there's two features here that Terminations does not have. One is if you do calling based on groupness, this little C here means that the top half of the square is in corner group, and the C over here means that the left-hand side of the square is in corner group. So if you do that sort of relationship type calling, it's nice to have these things here, especially for newer callers. And also the in or out of sequence here I found is particularly useful.
And that's something that you guys put in. Regular SD
Yeah,
doesn't do that.
that's correct. Yeah, we put that in.
Yeah.
So I would like to get Terminations to do the same thing, and Terminations is open source, but I have been unable to get Terminations to compile and run on my own system. Once we get to that point, we can probably drop in Terminations instead of SD.
You should just be able to like open up a browser pane and point it at it.
Actually,
yes. And in fact, I have a local copy of Terminations, but Brad doesn't support the local copy thing anymore. His latest version is only fetched over the network and then cached, and that doesn't work for
just a minute.
Here.
Mike, he's also he says now that we talked to him recently someplace that all versions are the same, whether it's the downloaded Mac version or the online things. Sometimes you have to uninstall to clear the cache to get the newer stuff to work, but
yeah,
I use the downloaded version, and it's much on my older, slower Mac. It really makes a big difference, especially when I'm recording it on Zoom.
Yeah, I've been unable to duplicate that build though. If I'm going to be modifying it to put in these other features like the groupness and the sequence, I need to be able to modify the source code, and I haven't gotten to that point yet.
Oh hell, just ask him to put it in. They'll put it in for you.
Brad's very responsive and likes good ideas. I'd check with him.
And Brad's retired.
He's got time now. Okay.
I don't know where you guys get this when you retire, you got time. It just means you work twice as hard for less money.
So Mark,
I'm going to head out. Mike, Dan, excellent session. Thank you very much. Don, I'll catch you later. And take care, everybody. Loved what you presented. And I'm looking forward to the next session.
Really good.
Excellent. Mark, share your screen.
I'm going to head out as well, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me.
Bye, Mike.
Okay, we'll see you guys. Take care.
Thank you so much for coming, and thanks for the program.
Send us comments and suggestions.
Yes.
Join us on some of the other ones, Mike, too. Like to have you in the audience and asking good questions.
Sounds good. Okay, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mark, lay it on us. Okay, so
is my mic on?
Your mic is on.
Okay.
So under File, Preferences, what? This must be an ancient version of the software. Okay. Oh, all right. I need to prevail upon Mike to build a later version for Windows, which might be a little bit of a challenge, but that makes sense. And that makes sense why you couldn't figure out how to do this. I'm sorry about that. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, that answer that. I'm like, I know it should be there. He's telling me it should be there, and I can't find it.
Now, if you're super nerdly, I believe the session names are stored in the SQLite database. So if you know what SQLite means, there's a database there, and you can go poke around in that and change the session names there. But this is older code, and yeah, we got to figure out how to get a later version of Windows built.
Okay.
Cool.
Quick suggestion.
Quick.
Yeah.
I know you guys are Mac users, but maybe one of you guys could come up if you have another session and have a Windows version.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
that you could display.
Mike was building the Windows version for a while, and I think it was the problem. I don't know how many users we have on Mac, but I'm a Linux user, and there were like 2 other people using the Linux version, and I don't think there was anybody using the Windows version, or maybe you were it. So unless we have like feedback from people who are saying, hey, I'm using the software, it's, when you're doing it for ego and the ego extends out to 1 or 2 other people, it's hard to get excited about that.
I understand. That's why I don't build Square Dance Caller's Buddy anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, there's not enough out there, and it's not worth it to me to spend all the time to make one of those mics.
Yeah.
Every few months.
There's the thing we didn't show is using a Bluetooth remote to control Square Desk.
Oh, that's fun.
But yeah, it's very much a Mike and I are scratching our own itches, and that's as far as we got.
But with this thing being an open source deal here, and you guys having it on GitHub and everything, and community interest, we ought to be able to recruit people to do other platform builds. Like, for example, when I try to get this to work on Linux, I'll once you walk me through it, I'll be happy to push buttons and upload things or something.
Yeah, well, it's the Linux. Yeah, I will happily walk you through the Linux version. If we had a technical Windows user, would absolutely love to have somebody kind of take ownership of doing that part of the build. All of the hooks are in there. We just kind of need, just as much as the libraries we're using claim to be cross-platform, there's always something that is slightly different that we have to tweak, and it takes having a running Windows machine, and I don't do enough on Windows to actually keep a Windows machine updated, and so it becomes a long thing.
I haven't run any Windows virtual or otherwise for since about 2014, but I'm considering sometime later this year getting a Windows machine.
We will sucker you into this. Patrick, did you have an input?
Yeah, I do. I have something saying it sounds to me whether it's questionable whether I want to download this program into Windows, because that's all we use is Windows. And now you're throwing out this thing, well, it's not for Windows.
Well, it's
all the callers I know use Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and, Windows has a Linux virtual machine with it now.
Yeah, I suspect that's more technical than Patrick is looking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be any harder than, well, who knows what they really did. It shouldn't be hard.
Yeah, again, this is software that got created because I was scratching my Linux itch, and Mike was scratching his Mac itch, and it happened that we could work on the same software. And yes, there is an older version on Windows, and maybe we can get a newer version built. But yeah, if you're happy with SquareView, take what you've learned about the features that we've adopted from SquareView here and use SquareView, and that's fantastic. That's this is not a dog eat dog fighting for the top marketplace that we're in here.
Well, so much of the stuff that you described in this program sounds actually almost perfect for what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we have Windows, and now you're saying it won't really.
We have the older version is on Windows. It has a bunch of features. It doesn't have the renaming the sessions. And if you end up with an old laptop that used to be Windows, it might be easier for me to walk you through setting up Linux on it and run the Linux version.
I see.
Because Linux works nicely on the older hardware. That
I really think you should try to figure out how to get the Linux VM that comes standard with Windows now to run.
I do have a client has given me a Surface Pro, I think it is, to do some Windows work for their project. I might try to spend a little time and see about getting it running on the Linux VM there, or it's a larger process to get it all going, but see if I can.
Microsoft made a huge deal about the fact that they were including that in Windows, like in Windows 11 and maybe even 10.
Yeah, I have fired it up, and I'm not sure I completely understand it, but it's time.
How well it actually works, I don't know. And like I said, I don't have any Windows machines here to try it on. So I all I can do is suggest, hopefully, that that Windows does support the Linux thing, and that the program really would run on there, and that it wouldn't be too hard to do. But anyway, that's just my hopeful suggestion.
Yeah, it's when I'm trying to make decisions between recruiting for square dancing or building things in my workshop or getting exercise, it's where that falls on the list. But
by the way, Dan, I did not bring that suggestion up this time. You did.
Yes. Well, it's because I went and found the spec and started to write some code, because I'm an old, I spent time at Pixar back in the 90s, and one of my contributions to the code base there was refactoring how it dealt with all of the raster image files of that time. And so when I started looking at those the CDG files, it took me right back to oh my God, this is like being in my 20s again and playing with all those old file formats. So it may end up there just because it's fun, but yeah.
And I think me personally, I use SquareView, but I like a lot of the features in this a lot better. But I've already got all my stuff made with the karaoke file, so that's part of the reason.
Yeah,
but I'm getting good enough now where I don't really need that karaoke window anymore.
What you need to do is, the source code is out there. Download the software, build it, and I'll point you to the specs for the CDG files, and you can write that part.
Well, no, I'm talking about keeping this Windows version going that you guys got.
That would be, I would help on that would be gratefully appreciated or gratefully received.
By the way, the thing that makes this program most attractive to me, functionality wise, is the tags and the song usage tracking. those are the two things I always have wanted out of a music player.
Those were my, yes, those were my big itches. So cool. Well, I got a whole bunch of stuff to go build. I will leave you all to it and
waving.
Catch you all next time.
Oh, Mark.
I was just waving goodbye.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Yes.
spending this time with us. And the other thing is concentrate on creating it for Windows.
Windows and for Newbie window users. Very simple.
Windows 11. There's a double learning process there going from 10 to 11. And I'm still thinking of Windows XP.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to download it. We'll see what we can do with it, play with it, see if we can make it all work. And then when you get it for Windows, then you'll upgrade us.
We'll drag you along as we can.
All right.
Cool.
Like learning a new language, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'll
Thanks,
see some
all.
of you guys at Mel's later on, right?
Cool. And yeah, unless anybody wants me to leave the room open, I will close the room and upload the video as soon as it finishes processing.
Good enough.
Cool. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.